One problem I had with learning arpeggios, practicing arpeggios, is practicing 1, 3, 5, 7 arpeggios for too long and missing out on life above the octave. So bringing in intervals like the 9th, the 11th and the 13th. So if you've only practiced your arpeggios as 1, 3, 5 or 1, 3, 5, 7, I'm going to show you a very simple way in which you can bring in the 9th to your practice today. Because for me, the 9th is such a wonderfully rich harmonic interval to add that it really does make your arpeggio sound more interesting. Now, the tab and notation you're about to see on the screen is available as a PDF, link in the description, as well as a link to my Patreon page. So taking a 2-5-1 in C with 1, 3, 5, 7 arpeggios, we might go like this to outline the chords. So how do we add the 9th? The first thing you need to understand is where we get 9th chords from and how we find them from scales. So if we took C major 7, taken from the C major scale, that's built in thirds. We take a C, we skip a third to E, skip a third to G, skip a third to B, then we have 1, 3, 5, 7. Now the C major scale, just extend it as a kind of continuous sequence. If we then went a third again, we'd get the 9th. So we would add a D, so you'd have C, E, G, B, D. This gives us the chord C major 9. Now you don't want to confuse this with add 9 chords. Add 9 chords don't have a 7th, they're spelled 1, 3, 5, 9. The preserver of guitarists, great guitarists like Andy Summers and the Police and Jimi Hendrix's rhythm playing. Now we would get a 9th for our D minor and our G in the same way. But in terms of, first off playing arpeggios, make sure you can obviously play your 9th chords first. So if we wanted to play a 2-5-1 with 9th chords instead of 7ths, it would be like this. We could go. Don't worry if you can't do those thumb chords, just ignore the thumb and play the top 4 strings on the guitar.
One thing I forgot to say is I'm ignoring the dominant sharp 9, so like G7, sharp 9, just because I think it's easier to use the natural 9th first and the flat 9.
So we've got our 3 chords, we've got D minor 9, D, F, A, C, and then an E for the 9th. Got our G9, which would be G, B, D, F, A, or G7 flat 9, G, B, D, F, A flat. And then one chord, C major 9, C, E, G, B, D. So let's start by simply playing that 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 like this. Now to really internalize the sound of the 9th, I suggest you sing those arpeggios, maybe even play the chords and try and sing the arpeggios. That's a great way to practice. Another way I like to practice this is just playing 3, 5, 7, 9, so just missing the root. That would sound like this. And as I annotated on the music, there's something interesting going on there. On the D minor 9, we're playing F, A, C, E. Yes, that's the 3, 5, 7, 9 of a D minor, but it's also an F major 7, the relative major of D minor. On the G9, we played 3, 5, 7, 9, B, D, F, A. That also happens to be a B minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio. And then on the one chord on the C, we played 3, 5, 7, 9, E, G, B, D, which happens to be the 3 chord, E minor 7. So there's some interesting kind of relationships there when you get into this stuff. That way's quite cool because it's missing out the root, and I think it's a classic beginner thing to always start your arpeggios from the root. So starting from the 3rd, then just adding the 3rd above the 7th, so our 9th is a good way to take things forward. You could then progress on to one of my favourite ways to practice arpeggios, which is you go 3, 5, 7, 9 in the first half of the bar, and then you go 1, 3, 5, 7 in the second half of the bar. And now in these examples, there's lots of octave displacement, lots of, I'm not completing the arpeggio in the same octave. It's going 3, 5, 7, 9, 1, 3, 5, 7. There's just some moving up and down the octave to complete it. Now finally, you obviously want to be able to use this in your improv. You want to be able to target those 9ths and build lines around them. First off, maybe playing the progression and making sure you can sing those 9ths against the chord, because they're maybe harder to hear than the basic, triad and 7th intervals. I'd then do something like this and build lines around those 9ths. Now, everything has been centered around a 2-5-1. Nice if you can just apply this to a tune that you're working on, maybe, in which you're practicing your arpeggios. That's where I would go with it. But you might find it easier just to work with the 2-5-1, get it in C, then see if you can find it in another key. Don't forget the tab notation available, link in the description, as well as a link to my Patreon page. Lots of additional stuff to help you with your jazz guitar learning over there. Anyway, Jazz Guitar Lessons here every Wednesday with myself, Andy. Until next time, you take care.